Hi there. Hi, Will. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Dee. Hi, Dee. Welcome, everyone.
And welcome to the Dee-Brief Show, your 30-minute weekly shortcut to clearer, more confident and impactful communications. And I'm delighted that Will is joining me this week. So Will Grover, welcome. Just tell us a little bit about who you are and where do you come from?
I come from the south. I live in Kent, kind of opposite France, nearer France than London. And my background is in this kind of stuff, actually. So coaching, mentoring, training people to be the best that they can be. And I've had the pleasure of working with you over the years, Dee, and this content. So I can speak with some authority about the fact that it works.
Brilliant. And we have worked with lots of teams together on this exact topic, which is about inspiring action, but without sounding really pushy. And I know that you and I have worked with lots of teams on this exact topic and taught individuals on this. So you're my special guest because you know so much about this already. So let's have a look at what it looks like when people aren't inviting action. Have you ever been in one of those meetings, Will, where you just sit there and they've gone and said everything, and actually sometimes it's quite interesting, but you've got no idea what to do next? Have you been in any of those meetings before?
Yeah, you just scratch your chin in sort of fascination. What just happened and what now? It's very, very confusing and time consuming over the course of a week if you've had a number of those meetings and you don't know what any of them mean to you personally.
No idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So while we're talking, please do say hello and let us know where you're calling from. And Will, you've got a question for the people in the either live or watching this on our follow-up recording.
Yeah, so whichever of those, your comments are really, really useful throughout this recording if you're watching it back as well. So just ask yourself and then answer in the chat wherever you are. How often do you find yourself in a meeting where people don't really know what it is that you've asked them to do? Or is it just me in the past? Do they always know what it is that you've asked them to do? Or do they never know what it is that you've asked them to do? Or is it somewhere in between? Just answer in the chat if you can. A for always, D for never, or somewhere in between with B and C. Interested to find out what your experience has been so far.
Great. Well, while they do that, chat, I'm going to let you have a look at the chat and I'll carry on and talk through the 3 moves that turn any talk or any discussion or meeting into action. So let's go through those 3 steps together. So the first thing is, like, some people don't mention what they want the outcome to be at all. So it's never even spoken about. So you're sat there thinking, I don't even know what I'm meant to be doing. But what we want to do is help people to lay the foundations successfully. And if you're thinking, where does this fit in the structure, the Simply Amazing structure that we talked about in episode 2, this is very much at the little intro and the why and the what, setting that up, ready to come into the how. And the how is where you do the action steps. So it's important to lay the foundations throughout the Simply Amazing structure in order to get to the point where you can ask for what you want, but without sounding pushy. So the first thing is to build rapport, say hello. There's lots I've spoken about this, and we're always talking about this in training, aren't we, Will? But make everybody feel welcome and everyone feel valued. Then you want to pace them and talk about the problems that they face. And we spoke about that probably in the what one section of the Simply Amazing structure. You know, these are the problems you face, aren't they? And you get people nodding along with you. So you are in their world. And then you finally do a safe setup so that it's okay for you to go into the beginning of the how section and start asking for stuff. So it might be a case that you start this now, like, do you agree with, so Will, say I've presented a new product to you. Will, do you agree that this is, the elements of the what that I went through? Do you agree that this is a new product that's really good for this market?
Certainly sounds so.
Brilliant. So now I've got Will in a place where I want to be able to now ask for what I want. Clearly, if he said no, it's a load of rubbish, there's no point in asking anymore. I need to go and deal with that objection. So, oh, yes, sorry, I'm skipping through. Will, anything in the comments, or do you want to ask anything specifically of the people watching?
Yeah, so just thinking about what Dee said, it's all part of that structure, starting with the end in mind, really. I'm going to set the scene so that when I ask people to do what I want them to do, they will be compliant and they'll know exactly what it is I'm asking them. What about you? What are your thoughts so far, just on that one point? If you can let us know in the chat, please, either live and I'll get back to you, or after the recording, and we'll still get back to you, whichever way around. So what might you do differently based on what Dee's just covered in that first section?
Thank you. So then we want to go from when a action is not agreed. So some people think that this is agreement. So I've told you, Will, to place an order with me. So that's agreement, isn't it? Because you've even nodded there, Will. So that's agreement, isn't it? Will, you're going to place the order now, aren't you?
Not quite. I've got some things I'm still working through, but I'm nodding just to stop this awkward conversation happening any further.
And maybe I haven't made it welcome. I haven't really invited you in. So where does this fall? What you want to do is you want to invite this commitment to happen. And this falls fair and square right into the how section. So you want to verbalise the next steps, and you start with the least ask and move to the biggest ask, if you like. So first of all, I might ask Will if he would like a free sample, for example, but at least I ask. So we'll go through those. So the first thing is we verbalise it. We actually say what we want, starting with the smallest ask. So I might say, Will, can we allocate the budget to do this, to put those samples aside?
Yeah, we can certainly work on that together.
Great. And then we might say we're open to objections. So Will's happy to do it, but say like Bob in finance, he's not quite so happy. I might say, okay, with open questions, I might say, okay, Bob, so you haven't got the budget at the moment. Should we do it in the next quarter? Or how could we? How could we have the budget to do that? When would that be? And so open questions, but not being defensive, but genuinely being interested in how you might solve this objection. And then the final piece here is getting individual commitment to that. So Will's happy, Bob's happy, but maybe there's some quieter people. If we're on the virtual call, especially, you need to be careful of this. If they've got their camera off, sometimes you can't even see them, depending on your settings, if their camera's off. So it's really easy to miss people out, but make sure you get individual commitment to what you're doing, because you don't know who might be able to block what you're doing. Just because Bob and Will have agreed doesn't mean that Doris has agreed. So that's right, isn't it, Will? Everyone should agree, shouldn't they, Will?
I agree, but I'm not sure that Dave behind me is as committed as I am. Yeah. Silence is not commitment, is it?
No. So watch out for that, especially on those virtual calls.
So yeah, thinking about what Dee said, getting people's commitment, are things clear enough for people to understand? Have you even mentioned what it is that you want them to do? What would you do differently now? Are there times that you think this might be handy? You can actually get some action going, some commitment from people in your audience, whether that's presenting formally or in a meeting or on a call. What would you do differently? Anything into the chat would be really, really helpful and insightful for us.
I love seeing those comments. Thanks for handling that for me, Will. It's great to see the comments live or after the event. And as you said before, we will answer them as quickly as we can and as thoroughly as we can. And if there's anything we can't answer straight away, then I can have a look at that in more detail and share in the newsletter the more in-depth answer if it's required.
And they may inform one of the next broadcasts anyway. So if it's a really good question from you, you might well find yourself being called out on one of the calls with thank you for your question, and we'll address it live. So
great. I was just going to say that this stuff that we're covering now about asking for action, specifically in the how section of the Simply Amazing structure, is outlined in detail. It is in detail in the High Performance Presentations book.
Yeah, so this, I have to say, this was probably my first introduction to Dee and this whole strategy, the structure behind presenting well. And I thought I always really considered myself a fairly good communicator and a fairly effective presenter, but a lot of it, I have to admit, was probably down to kind of luck, being in the right room at the right place at the right time with the right products who were ready, and people that were ready to buy, and having innate skills at communication. But what the book does is lays out a clear structure that anybody can follow, and not leaving things to chance and accident. So if you're okay at presenting, this will make you even better. If you're timid right now, it will make you at least competent enough to feel like you can do this and do it well. So it's, I think, absolutely brilliant book that's easy enough for anybody to digest and put into practice. More to the point, it's not just lots and lots of principle. It's really, really simple steps that you can follow right now to get the results that you want.
Thanks, Will. And yeah, there's especially lots of detail on the how section, which is what we're talking about now. I keep saying outline, but I'll tell you why, because the SAS structure is an outline of the whole presentation. So I know why I'm doing it. Now, there's another book.
Reading the book. If you like it, if you find this fascinating, it's worthwhile reading the book. Just puts a bit more meat onto the bone so you can understand how those things are structured and why they're in the order that they're in. I think it gives you a lot more confidence to use that kind of structure once you understand the mechanics behind it. But even if you showed somebody a single page PDF of the steps and they wrote a presentation or a talk around that, it would still be better. It's just nice to have known, well, why it's so much better. How come?
Brilliant. And that single page download PDF is in one of the newsletters that followed episode 2. So that's in the newsletters if you're reading those. There's also the other book, Taming Your Public Speaking Monkeys. And you might wonder where this is relevant in this sort of how, because I haven't talked about being nervous. But Will, you've seen this in some of the clients that you've worked with, I know. What is it about the monkeys that have a role to play in the how section?
So, I mean, from a presenter's point of view, if you feel like people aren't on your side and there's a worry that people don't like what you're saying or like how you're saying it, then you're probably a little less likely to be clear, which is really weird given the circumstances, because people like clarity. Whether you're the audience or the presenter, it's nice to know what you need to know. And the monkeys, or the beliefs that get in the way sometimes of creating clarity and then commitment, is just, oh, well, I better not be too forceful, or people will think I'm being bossy, or they might think I don't care about their feelings or something. They might feel hurt and then they won't like me. So it can stop you being as clear as you need to be in a presentation situation. And even from an audience's point of view, if you're a little bit nervous and your boss is telling you loads of information and expecting you to understand not just what they've said, but what it is they want you to do with it, you might sit there as an audience member and think, okay, well, I'm just going to nod along like I did earlier on until you said something to me. I'm just going to nod along so that I don't get any bad attention, and then I leave the meeting and it's too late. My chance to ask for clarity is gone. So monkeys are present with everybody. And if we go into a presentation or a meeting situation knowing that, then we can pre-arm ourselves with some techniques that help to build rapport, that help people to ask good questions throughout and to ask for clarity if they don't have it, but also to build into our presentation so much stuff that everybody's clear by the end about what's been said and what's being asked. So yeah, it's really good. There's lots of science and neuroscience that goes into that book, and it's a really fascinating read.
Yeah, so the monkeys are relevant for each part of presenting and each part of the SAS. They can have a little role, but it reminds me when you said that they might not want to ask questions, because it takes us back to where the monkeys come from is when we're a lot younger, as you know, Will. And in class, for example, we were never encouraged to, well, I was certainly never encouraged to ask questions at school. We learned this kind of don't ask me, sort of glare away, look away. Don't look away so far that the teacher looks at you, but don't look at the teacher in the eyes in case they ask you a question. So we learn this, don't ask questions, don't we? So it's all from our
and I think what's really interesting in the book is like pulls apart the difference between your personality style or preference and then something that you've learned as a strategy, which may or may not work for you. So if staying quiet and sort of sinking into the background is a strategy you've used because you're scared of speaking up, then it probably isn't serving you and the people that you work with, because your ideas are valuable. We want to hear from everybody. And certainly with things like commitment or instruction even, I need to know that you're actually going to follow through, that you're not just saying yes because I'm terrified or yes because I'm not clear on what's needed from me, because then it ends up with, you've got the work to do. If you're a boss, you're a leader, and feels like everybody understands what you've said because they've nodded or they haven't said anything. And then later down the line, you feel like you've got to fill in everybody on the information again, and you've got to chase people and hold them accountable and explain things. It just takes a lot longer. It's a lot more clunky. So yeah, good things to read and bone up on these 2 books actually.
And loads more on this in the next episode. Actually, Will, we've got to remember this so that we can carry on this conversation, because next episode, next week, that I'm really looking forward to doing with you in episode 5, we're going to be talking about getting those more introverted preferences, or people who maybe don't find it easy to speak up, talking about how to get them involved in meetings and presentations so that we can hear all the voices. So that's a really good link into next week. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you more about that. But let's go back to the final point here. We were talking about taking action, and specifically in, using that how section of the Simply Amazing structure. And the last piece of, once we've got everybody doing what we want, the next sort of piece is to make sure that we're not being a bit too random about it. And we have said it, but of course we got a bit bored or a bit tired, and so we didn't quite be really clear about what actions they are. So we want it to be clear and we want it to be aligned. And this is right towards the end of the how section now. We want to make sure that we've got these different points. So we want to make sure that it's a shared plan between us, right? It's not just me that's invented the plan, it's my plan and I'm instructing you to follow along. We want to make it shared. So ideally, if you're working in a team, that would look like the group coming together with shared actions, shared ideas and shared involvement. And we're going to talk more about that next week as well. But if it's more of a kind of pitch, it's still about getting you involved. So by asking open questions, and if I want you to order those samples, Will, I'd say, so when do you think you could place that order by, Will?
Today.
Oh, wow. That's really good. Thank you. I look forward to getting that by the end of the day. Shall I have a look out for that then?
Oh, yeah, probably between now and 4 o'clock, actually.
Lovely, thank you. So if only everybody was as quick as a decision maker as you
were.
I'm
too compliant for this example.
But even if you didn't want to do it then, it'd be, I'm not ready yet. Okay, great. Could you let me know when would be, the plan is, even if the plan isn't a yes, the plan is, well, when would it be okay for me to follow you up then and check in on those things that you said you needed to do? So you're always, what they say in sales, you're always closing, but some people feel uncomfortable with that language, but you are always closing. Even if it's not a sale, you're closing a decision down. So you don't want to let Will leave or anyone leave without having agreed an action, even if that action is to follow up in a week or 2 weeks or whenever. So let's make sure we hear everybody's voice or get everybody to be involved in that plan.
Of course, just to touch on that, because you said about we're going to cover this next week a lot more, and it's just to make you realise that every step of the plan, every step of the structure is designed to make each step easier and make more sense. So by the time you get to this, if you follow that structure right, it doesn't feel like you're having to get everybody to put their hand up and say yes and do that open commitment. It's kind of they're with you because they were with you from the start. So even when you're starting with, the very, very first step, you are starting with the end in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point, Will, because some people aren't used to, especially with virtual, you need to be more specific, like, so can I just have a thumbs up for that? And it can feel really awkward. But you're right, because we did this at the beginning and we did the chat and the hello and the rapport and where are you calling from, or how did your day go, or on a scale of 1 to 10, or these things actually are all about what we're going to talk about next week. Ban boring, how to make longer meetings more interesting and engaging and effective. And we're going to include some virtual tips on there as well, because I know virtual adds a little layer of complexity. So if you want to know how to do this sort of thing without feeling awkward, without it being awkward, then tune in to next week as well. So we're going to get a shared action plan. Then we're going to make sure that the plan is very specific. So whatever that means for you, you might have your own ways of working for doing that, but making sure that you know exactly what it is with a name and a date. And that needs the number of meetings. Will, you and I have been in lots of meetings with teams where we've been training them, and even the actions from the training we've noticed and we've intervened, if you like, helping people to do those actions and record them in a more effective way. We've done that together, haven't we, with teams?
Yeah, because people can be very bad at these basics, like tying up a meeting. Like you've had it before, where people aren't primed for the meeting, so they don't really know what it's going to be about. So they spend 10 minutes trying to figure out why they're there. And it's the same with the end of a meeting as well. If I haven't figured out these specifics, what are we going to do now? And allow it to be woolly and just hope somebody somewhere gets it and will take action. Again, you're leaving things to chance far too much. So defining things, being, giving it a name, giving it a date, so some kind of time limit when things should happen by. And yeah, like you say, we've been very, very strict on people, like printing up on the wall and sticking post-it notes on it, saying, right, who owns that? When's it going to happen by? How can we hold you accountable? How can we help you to help yourself to make sure that these things actually get done? They're simple things, but they make a massive difference, particularly if it's a subject that you keep coming back to. Nobody wants to come into a meeting that sounds and looks exactly like the last one we had about the same thing, and nothing's changed.
Yeah,
it drives everyone bonkers, quite rightly.
But this is why, right? Because they aren't clear. Even if you've done all the other steps and you have actually said what action you want, if you're not clear about it, then it becomes confusing. And the last step in that is to make sure that everybody has reviewed it together at the end. So even if you've got all the best actions as you go along, what can happen is, as the meeting's moved, you might have made a different decision from the item that you did at the beginning. So however wonderful your action taking is, you've got to review it together to make sure that what was said 25 minutes ago is still the best action for Alice to be taking after the meeting. So these are steps that I think people are maybe so bored by the end of the meeting, they're desperate to get out or they're rushing to their other meeting. You need to allow a good chunk of time to do this. And it's surprising how long good actions, if you've done a very strategic meeting, good actions can take a good old chunk of time, can't they?
Yeah. And again, it's driving home the importance of this kind of thing. So reviewing it, you think, well, I've got so much content to run through. I don't know if I've got any time to set up and be nice to everyone and ask them where they've come from and what they're thinking. And then at the end, to review things together and get specific commitments from people. It's like you find that you'll use a lot more time if you don't. So if we've had this quite a lot where people are so keen on just cramming information into that 10 minutes or half an hour or an hour that they've got in order to present something, that they forget how important these bookends are. The setup and the close is just as important as the content in the middle, because otherwise it will just blow into the wind. Yeah,
and I actually say more important, because what's the point of a meeting if you're not going to take any action?
Yeah, I think it's my mantra now. My family hate me for it, but it came from working with you. It's like, well, kind of, what's the point? Just having this lot of companies we've worked with been guilty of this. Like just a quick 15-minute meeting. Well, if all your meetings are creating a little bit of ambiguity, then you might have 12 of those in a day. It's just a 15-minute meeting. You'll be more confused at the end of the day than you were to start with. So then what is the point? Well, just to confuse people. Great, well, you've succeeded. But if the point is to get information shared and commitment gained, we need to do these simple things better.
Yeah, and that confusion you're talking about, what that might look like to somebody who doesn't know what it's about and where the problem is that might look like a lack of action. So you come back the next week, like you said, that meeting where it's exactly the same as last week, nobody's done any action, but also indecision. This is where indecision comes from, because I can't decide because I'm not quite clear. Even if I left the meeting with 100% intent to do that action, if we haven't agreed it all together, then it's really hard for me to make a decision outside of the meeting without anyone else there. So I'll bring that to the next meeting, which is why these meetings last for so long. So there you go. That's the last point there. So any questions for the audience there, Will? Yeah, please let us know what your thoughts are about that. Whether you've had an example that is similar and you've used this to good effect. So either here on LinkedIn,
or Facebook chat. Remember, either during the actual broadcast or after. Always happy to answer your questions and to share your insights with the audience on the next call.
So it's time for you guys to take action now. So what would we like you to do? Well, not surprisingly, we want you to take at least one action. So have a think about what action you can take now in regard to actions in your meetings or at the end of emails or in important phone calls, proposals, bids, stakeholder meetings. What action can you take and how can you improve your how section? That'd be really good for you to do that. And whilst you're writing that down, and maybe if you want to share that in the chat with us, Will can comment back on that. That's brilliant. It would be great if you wanted to sign up, if you haven't already, to the newsletter, because then you can stay ahead of what's happening on the Dee-Brief Show, what our next topics are. You can see how you can watch any episodes that you might have missed. You've been busy, and you can get free downloads and free Dee-Brief show notes because you might not have been able to make enough notes as you're listening to us as you go along. So what you need to do is scan with your phone this QR code here, and that will take you to the link for the Dee-Brief newsletter, which is available on LinkedIn. So get yourself onto LinkedIn if you're not on LinkedIn. And if you want a copy of the newsletter and you're not on LinkedIn, then just drop me a message on Facebook and I can send. In fact, I'll send it to you on Facebook. Just let me know. And if you've liked the show, if you've enjoyed it today and you think this is really useful, please have a think. Who else can you share it with? Maybe a team member, maybe all of your team, maybe other people in the business, maybe colleagues, maybe your LinkedIn buddies. We would really appreciate you sharing your learnings or your insights or the links to the Dee-Brief Show or the newsletter, whatever you want to share. We really appreciate you doing that and spreading the word. So next week, we've talked about this a little bit already, Will. Next week, we're going to be talking about ban boring, how to hold attention in longer meetings. And I've put virtual meetings as well because they seem like longer meetings sometimes, don't they, even if they're not longer meetings. So we look forward to seeing you then on the 9th of May, 11 o'clock, episode 5. Come and join us live. We love it when you interact live because it's more engaging. And Will, I really appreciate that you've been there looking at the comments whilst I've been talking as well. So that's been really helpful. Thank you for joining me and thank you for putting the input in there in the comments. And we will continue to do that even after we're live. So if you're watching on replay, please do add in some more comments. So thank you very much for joining us. Anything before we go, Will, anything from you?
Oh, just that this stuff works. And if you have enjoyed it, share it with the team so that when you start doing this in real life, they go, oh, yeah, it's a person who takes action. I want to emulate that because it works. Yeah, fantastic. And they'll notice, won't they? It was make you stand out from other people. Yeah, 100%. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us today. You've added such value. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you next week. My pleasure. See you then. Thanks for watching, everyone.